begin. It's Teaching Tuesday where the magic's within. Unlock the words, let the stories unfold. In a world of letters, watch the wonders take hold. Come on in, let's learn and grow. Build the future word by word, row by row. Together we'll read, together we'll rise. On Teaching Tuesdays, we'll open our eyes. Every sound, every line brings us closer to turning our learners into super prosers. Phonics and fun, on a journey we'll lead. With every Tuesday, we plant another seed. Come on in, let's learn and grow. Build the future word by word, row by row. Together we'll read, together we'll rise. On Teaching Tuesdays, we'll open our eyes. Step by step, we'll find our way. Through every challenge, come what may. In our group, you're never alone. Together we'll turn this skill into a stone. Come on in, let's learn and grow. Let's learn and grow. Build the future word by word, row by row, row by row. Together we'll read, together we'll read, together we'll rise, together we'll rise. Teaching Tuesdays, the skies.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Teaching Tuesday. My name is Katina Taylor. I'm so excited to have you here with me today. I don't know where you're located, but I am in Kansas City, Missouri, and I will tell you the rain is falling, the thunder is roaring, it is lightning, and we have had tornado warnings throughout the area. So I am pre-recording our Teaching Tuesday segment in case the weather continues to do what it does. And if we are forced to take cover, I want to make sure that we do that. But I also wanted to ensure that I took the opportunity to present this information to you all so that you have an opportunity to watch it at your leisure. I hope that you all are staying warm, cool, dry, and safe, most importantly, if you're in the Midwestern states on today. Today is June 3rd, 2025, and this is episode 59 of Teaching Tuesday. Can you believe it? Episode 59. You all may not know me. This may be the first time that you are joining me for Teaching Tuesday on YouTube or even in my private Facebook group. So I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce myself. Again, my name is Katina Taylor. I'm the founder and CEO of Dreams KC, an education nonprofit where we empower parents with the tools they need to teach their children foundational literacy skills. I taught for 15 years in the traditional public school system, charter school, and private schools. I started with middle school, went to first grade, and then taught in high school as well. So I have been all across the K through 12 continuum in many different types of school environments. And now I want to ensure that the first and most important teachers of children, the parents, are equipped to be full partners in their academic journey. So 15 years in the classroom, 25 years in the education space, tutor, a trainer of other teachers, consultant, a school board candidate, you name it. I eat, sleep, and breathe education, specifically literacy. And I am so excited that you are with me. Again, this is episode 59. Can you believe it? Of Teaching Tuesdays. 59 weeks, right here, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time every Tuesday on YouTube or in our private Facebook group, Literacy the Dreams Way. I encourage you to join that Facebook group. I encourage you to like, comment, and share our videos, like our page. Invite others that you know need to be here, whether you have a very young child or whether you have an adolescent literacy learner, we cover all the skills necessary to ensure that they are confident and competent, right? So I always like to start out by sharing that this is the iceberg, right? It's a video, or not a video, a graphic of an iceberg. And what you see above the surface, above the water, just like in real life, is only about 15% of the iceberg. What does that mean in terms of Teaching Tuesday, Dreams KC, and the time that we spend together? Is on Tuesdays, Teaching Tuesdays. Anyone is welcome to join us for these sessions, but you're only getting about 15%, 15% that's actionable, 15% that is important, 15% that you can actually take and apply and move your students forward on their literacy journey. Absolutely. But if you join Dreams KC in one of our in-person live, right, parent literacy trainings, then you get the remainder, what's beneath the surface, that meat. And that is what is so important, to make sure that we build confident and competent readers. You may hear, I hear tornado sirens are starting up again. So if for some reason I have to get ghost, you all pray for us, pray for our city. If you know, St. Louis, Missouri, which is just 4 hours to the east of us, several weeks ago did have a tornado move through. So I am hoping, I'm praying that that is not the case in Kansas City, Missouri, but you never know. All right, so let's keep it moving. Hopefully I can get through this recording and get you all the information you need. If I have to stop and take cover, I'm going to do just that. All right. So what are we talking about this week? We are talking about multisyllabic word reading strategies, and we are supporting our adolescent literacy learners at home, right? That's the goal. That's what we want to do. Ensure that parents, if we're holding you accountable and responsible for supporting your children, then we want to ensure that you have the tools you need to truly support them, right? So that is what we're talking about. And when I say adolescent literacy learners, we're talking about 4th grade and above. Oftentimes when we hear the word adolescent, what we really are thinking is that we're talking about teenagers. But in the education space, what we're actually talking about are upper elementary, middle schoolers, and high schoolers, right? And some may have challenges, some may have gaps in their skill set. They may not have had a teacher or a group of teachers prior to 4th grade that were steeped in structured literacy, the science of reading, how we learn to read effectively. They could have had long-term subs. They could have gone through their K through 3rd grade experience being impacted by COVID. It could be any number of reasons why we find ourselves here today needing this additional support. And I wanted to make sure that the adolescent literacy learners, just like our earlier literacy learners, pre-K through 3rd grade, have exactly what they need to address any challenges or gaps that they have in their literacy skills. So as they move into their upper grades, remember that academic vocabulary that's used in their fictional texts, it gets more complicated, it gets harder, it gets more challenging for our students. So if your students are struggling to decode more complex, longer words, then it can affect their ability to comprehend, which is the ultimate goal of reading, right? Make meaning from what they're reading, and it can impact their understanding in every content area. So we want to be sure that they are equipped with the skills necessary to attack that more complex, more challenging vocabulary, right? The good news, of course, is that you don't have to be a teacher to help them. You, their first and most important teachers, parents, early career educators, within just about 15 minutes to 45 minutes a day, 3 to 5 days a week, you can help that adolescent literacy learner grow more confident and more competent, right? More capable. And so that's what we're diving in today. And I wanted to make sure that you were clear on why we are doing this. So why does it matter, right? Again, we have more complex vocabulary. We know that being unable to decode longer, more complex words, it then impacts other content areas. It impacts their comprehension. We do not want them to miss key concepts in any content area or lesson that they are engaging with, right? And that your support is crucial. Again, 15 minutes to 45 minutes, 3 to 5 days a week, you will begin to see them grow by leaps and bounds, right? So, what is it that they need to know before they ever get here? What is it? Now, we have reviewed several weeks back to back early in the Teaching Tuesday segments. We talked about what those early literacy skills are, but we want to review them, especially now as we think about our older students, right? So they should have syllable knowledge, not only how to count how many syllables they are, but the different syllable types, whether they're open, whether they're closed, whether they're LE syllables, what have you. They need to be able to do that. And then they also need to be able to divide consonants appropriately, right? They need to have that basic phonics skills where we're matching the letter sounds, the phonemes, to the actual graphemes, right? The letters themselves. So that sound letter connection. It should be mastered. And I'm so glad that I put the word mastered here, because oftentimes when I talk about mastery, parents are like, what do you mean? How do I know that they've mastered it? Well, I'll tell you. You will know that they've mastered a particular skill, a particular concept, because they can demonstrate an understanding of that skill or concept independently demonstrate their understanding with 90% accuracy or above. That's how we know that they've mastered a skill or a concept. And then, of course, they have to have mastered phonemic awareness, working toward mastery of phonemic awareness, their ability to hear and manipulate letter sounds, right? Phonemes, right? So before we get to the multisyllabic words, just basically means words that have 2 or more syllables, they need to have these foundational skills. And so you can quickly review them. You can quickly assess whether or not they have gotten to mastery in these particular skill areas. You can review them with them, and then you say, okay, now I know we are ready to move forward, and we're going to tackle the more complex vocabulary, the multisyllabic words. You may even say, okay, Katina, why would I go down this path? Why would I begin to address or attack or work toward mastery of multisyllabic words? Well, again, they're getting older. So they're going to be encountering more complex, longer words. But you also may see in their writing that they are struggling to spell multisyllabic words. You also, as they read, and you should be listening and observing them read, you may also observe on a consistent basis when they're reading aloud, when you're asking them comprehension questions, things of that nature. Hey, something's getting in the way of their understanding the meaning, right? And so at that point, then you want to begin to address these multisyllabic words, because it could be actually impacting their comprehension, right? So that's why these are important. Those are the prerequisite skills. You may also say, hey, we've talked about Tomlin's hourglass figure, which is right here on the right-hand side of this slide. So when we talk about those early skills, right, when we go back here and we look at the syllable knowledge, the basic phonics, the phonemic awareness, that's at the top portion of the hourglass figure. When we start talking about the syllables down here, you see syllables again under word families before morphemes, right? That is at the bottom of the hourglass figure in the orthography section of the hourglass, where we are tackling, again, more complex, more challenging vocabulary, words, etc., spelling patterns, etc., right? So that sound level where we begin, that's the individual phonemes. It helps your child identify and manipulate the smallest units of sound. Then we get into word structure, where we start talking about those syllables, those word parts, where we're breaking down and building words. And then we want to get to that meaning level, ultimately comprehension, connecting to vocabulary and comprehension, understanding the word parts lead to understanding of meaning. If we can understand a word root, if we can understand a suffix, a prefix, and we put those things together, breaking words apart by those affixes and those word roots, then we are able to determine meaning in context and out of context, right? apply it to our writing, decode the words when we're reading, and again, we become confident and competent readers. So structured literacy, the science of reading, it follows this sequence explicitly. We want to be consistently, intentionally, and explicitly teaching these skills. They will not pick it up through osmosis. You all, we have to teach it. And so I want to be clear that as parents, that as educators, we can be supporting our children as they grow as confident and competent readers. I don't know if y'all can hear the sirens, but they are still going off. We haven't gotten anything to tell us to take cover, but I'm still paying attention. I have my phone right beside me to see if we get noticed that we need to take cover, get to the interior portion of our homes or anything of that nature. So if we are diving into, I'm sorry, you all, multisyllabic word reading strategies. Again, I'm trying to check. Let me check the forecast real quick here. Okay, flash flood warning. So we're good, we're good, we're good. So when we start talking about these multisyllabic word reading strategies, there are going to be several strategies that I'm going to introduce. And the first one is syllable division. Now, remember, last week we talked about the 6 different syllable types. We talked about them having the ability to count the number of syllables and divide, right, syllable patterns. So we want to review this. We want to make sure that they are getting to mastery with this particular skill, because if they can't do this, then it impedes their ability to move forward, right? So we introduced closed syllables, right? That it ends with a consonant. Then we know that it generally is going to have a short vowel sound. Then we start talking about open syllable types, right? The open syllable generally is going to end with a vowel. That vowel is going to say its name, long vowel sound. Then we have the vowel consonant E. Some people say the silent E, the magic E rule, right? That the E at the end of the word makes that vowel smack dab in the middle say its name. And in between that vowel and that E, we have a consonant. So that's why it's vowel, consonant, E, right? Make. Then we have vowel teams like R-A, R-Y, A-I, A-Y, E-A, etc. And they all have their unique sounds. It's 2 vowels coming together to make a single sound. We have R-controlled vowels like R-controlled syllable types like A-R, I-R, U-R, E-R. All have a distinct sound. And then we have that consonant L-E like table, Scrabble, right? Those are the 6 syllable types. And then within, they need to be able to count. So we want to say, okay, instruction, for example, instruction. So we know that there are 3 syllables, instruction, right? Then we want to talk about the different syllable types within that word. And then we want to know how to divide that word, right? Appropriately, because that also is going to help us spell it well, correctly. So you have multiple ways in which we can divide syllables. So we have the vowel consonant / consonant vowel. So if you look at the word winter here as the example, you have a vowel in that first syllable, winter, 2 syllables. So W-I-N, so we divide in between the 2 consonants, right? Because one consonant has a vowel before it, one consonant has a vowel after it. So the I-N and then the T-E. Want to divide there. Then you have vowel, consonant, vowel. So you have an open vowel type, hotel, 2 syllables, ho, H-O. Remember, that's open, ends with a vowel, long vowel sound. And then you have T-E-L, that consonant vowel, tell, T-E-L, right? So you want to split the syllables there. Then you have vowel, consonant, river, 2. So you have an I and a V, vowel, consonant, and then it's followed by another vowel. So you want to split it in between the consonant and that second vowel. And then you have contract, two vowels again, or two syllables again. And if you notice, both of those are those look to be closed, yes, closed syllables, right? And so we have vowel, consonant, 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 and then another vowel. So you divide right in between the first consonant and the second consonant. Saying that really fast, I tell you, or saying it consistently is like a tongue teaser, okay? So these are the different division patterns when we start talking about dividing syllables. I hope that makes sense for you all, right? All right, so I wanted to make sure we give some attention to not only counting syllables, identifying the syllable types, and then syllable patterns, how we divide those words up. So at the bottom, I have another example, information. Now we count those syllables, information, right? So four syllables or word part, right? Information. And so if you notice, we have IN, right? So that's a closed vowel or closed syllable type, in. Then we have FOR. And I love, if you notice, we have a vowel, a consonant, and then another consonant, right? So that's going to tell us where we divide these syllable parts up. Then if you look at in between for and may, you have consonant, vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel, right? So again, we're dividing it up, and then we have shun. And also we want to, well, we'll get to that because we're also going to be talking about the types of word parts that are present as well. And then so you can break it apart and then you blend it to create the whole word. Again, that's going to help you write the word correctly. It's going to help you decode the word correctly. So syllable division, identifying the syllable types, counting the syllable number of syllables in a word. All of those things work together to ensure that our children are not only able to decode, but blend and write the more complex multisyllabic words correctly. All right. So I want to make sure you are with me. Okay. So that is strategy number one. You want to be practicing this, especially when you notice that they are struggling with longer multisyllabic words, right? All right. So that's strategy number one. Strategy number two, we call chunking, and then we have the peel off method. So this method works great. I mean, extremely well when you have an adolescent literacy learner that's feeling a bit overwhelmed, right? You can break it down into parts, chunk or peel off parts of the word to make it more manageable. They won't feel so overwhelmed. So what do you mean? Well, we want to look for prefixes and suffixes that we've already taught them or that they have a list of, right? So and then we want to peel them off. They know what those are. We want to peel them away so we can get to that root word, right? Then we want to put everything back together in pieces, right? And then we can decode the word, right? So for example, I have at the bottom here, unbelievable. So they have probably already been taught. They should have already been taught. You've probably taught them the prefix, able, A-B-L-E, right? That's a suffix. So we pull those apart, chunk them away, peel them off. And what are you left with? Believe. You want to talk about what that word means. What does believe mean, right? So you go into it talking about, hey, let's get rid of the things we know for sure. What are we left with? Oh, that's that word root. What does this whole word then mean when we piece it back together or blend it all together again? So you want to look for those prefixes and suffixes. You want to peel them off to isolate or target that root word. You want to decode that root, and then you want to blend all the parts back together, right? So unbelievable, right? Not able to believe something. That's what that word means. Immediately, they can then begin to make meaning. They'll begin to be able to decode those longer, more complex words, and it won't overwhelm them because they have a method, a strategy to break it into smaller, more manageable chunks so they are not feeling overwhelmed. Okay. So that's strategy number 2 when we're starting to talk about multisyllabic reading strategies. All right. So then you oftentimes you want to go into a structural analysis approach, right? That's that morphology, that big umbrella word that we talk about, right? So again, breaking a word down, you're teaching prefixes, you're teaching suffixes, you're teaching common root words that they will encounter in 4th, 5th, 6th, up to 12th grade and beyond, right? So you go a little bit deeper. Now, one thing I want to point out to you, I always use academic vocabulary. I do that purposefully because if you sit down with a classroom teacher, a tutor, a literacy coach, you sit in an IEP meeting and they're using these terms, I want you to understand what they mean. So let's start there. Morphology is the understanding of the meaning of word parts. It's just that simple. Morphology is the understanding of the meaning of word parts, prefixes, suffixes, and root words. That's it. Okay. So you want to teach those most common prefixes. I gave you all a resource list last week with the most common prefixes, the most common suffixes, and some of the most common root words. Okay. And then you utilize them. This helps your adolescent literacy learner not just read the word, but really understand what it means. Remember, that's the ultimate goal of reading, right? And you could take these and put these on index cards, and then you have them actually build different words. What word is this if we take this prefix with this root word, with this suffix, etc., and begin, they're building and building and building that vocabulary, which is so needed and necessary to get them away from, is broadening, right? Expanding their vocabulary, which then should impact not only the way in which they engage with a text they're reading, but it should also improve, stretch, right? Grow their writing as well. For example, I have one here, transportation, right? So you have several different word parts there that you play with, and you begin to then make meaning from that, right? Just want you all to understand it. Hope that makes sense for you. All right. So the process of moving something across state lines, across the street, across the world, that's transportation. It's the process, and I said moving, but carrying something across the street, the railroad tracks, the world, right? The city is transportation. We are moving. Okay. So that's how you would do a structural analysis of a word. I tell you, if you have a kiddo that loves to compete and you want to get them ready for like a spelling bee or something like that, this would be great. You could even have a family spelling competition. You should push your classroom teachers to be having spelling bees because they get to then practice breaking these words down using, right, morphology, syllabication, and it grows their vocabulary. It deepens the way in which they think about literacy, words, right? All of the things. So this is a great way to prep, especially our older learners. And everybody's not going to be into athletics. So this is another way if you have a kiddo that loves school, loves to learn, but is also competitive and wants to find something academic to do, right? And this would be a great way for them to apply what they're learning in their literacy work to a competitive, I say game, competition, etc. All right. So that's strategy number 3. So then strategy number 4, don't forget about these vowel teams and spelling patterns. The English language is peppered with them, right? So we want to ensure that they are aware of the spelling patterns, the vowel teams that exist. So the most common are your A-I-A-Y, your E-E-E-A, your O-A-O-W, your O-U-O-W, right? Cloud, town, mountain. Now, I want you to notice O-W in town is very different than O-W in rainbow. O, ow. So you can have a vowel team depending on how it's used. That's a bow, open syllable, town, closed syllable, or Did I flip-flop them, you all? Open, long vowel sound, O. So rainbow. And close, we have that short vowel sound, ow, right? In town. So I just want you all to know that, like, hey, we have exceptions to rules. The spelling patterns may show up differently depending on how it's used, what type of syllable it's in. That's why it's important to know the syllable types, etc. Then you have tree, you have beach, you have between, long E vowel teams, right? Long A vowel team, rain, play, maintain, right? So you want to practice identifying these patterns in multisyllabic words. You want to point them out while you're reading. You want to encourage them to make sure they are spelling appropriately as they write, etc. Remember, reading and writing go hand in hand. The more we are able to decode and apply rules of the English language in decoding, blending, segmenting, manipulating, right, those letter sounds, the better we can apply that to our writing, and we begin to become better spellers as well. They work hand in hand to each other, or with each other, excuse me. So you want to practice spotting these in longer words and encouraging your adolescent literacy learner to say them out loud. They need to be able to hear. Remember, so much of what we do with literacy is auditory, what we hear, right? That also helps us spell because we're hearing it. Does it sound right? If I pronounce this word, does that word sound like a word we've heard before, we've been exposed to before? If not, maybe I need to try it a different way. Okay. So I just want you all to know that as well. Let's get to our next strategy. Actually, no, that's it. I had those 4 strategies I want to go into. Like, how do you practice it at home, right? How do you engage at home? Now, remember, I always tell you, you don't want to be bored. Your child doesn't want to be bored. It should be hands-on, body kinesthetic. There is a connection between body and mind, getting it into from our short-term memory to our long-term memory. So you want to start by saying things as you all are reading. They come across something they're unfamiliar with, you model it for them, right? You model what these prefixes and suffixes and word parts mean and vowel teams. How do I say that in context? So you want to have, and I shouldn't say just team. See, I made that mistake there, but your adolescent literacy learner, you want them to repeat what you say, right? You're modeling for them. Remember the concept. I do, we do, then you do, they do independently. Is that you do part, right? So we start by modeling it, right? Having them repeat after us, chorally, sing, almost like a choir, right? Singing it, saying it together. We want to practice together. We're supporting them through that practice phase. And then eventually we're going to say, now you try it, right? So are they saying those syllables aloud? Are they hearing the sounds, right? As it builds the memory pathways, can they tap it out? Tap a finger for each syllable as they count, right? As they identify, etc. Physical movement creates stronger neural connections. We're building new neural pathways that did not exist in the brain, right? Then we want to write it. We want to write the word with the syllables in different colors. Visual distinction helps recognition. Let's say you have them pick out 3 of their favorite colors. All right, we're going to do prefixes in blue. We're going to do suffixes in red, and then whatever color you want to do those word roots in the middle, we're writing those words. They'll get to start to see and distinguish what's different, what those different word parts are. And then you want to have them read in context and in isolation. You start in isolation, then you move it into context. Is it in their text? Do we have some decodable text for them? Do we have some grade level text where we know we're going to encounter some of that word, right? Authentic, organic, genuine practice, it builds the ability to transfer the skills we are teaching in isolation. I hope that makes sense. Do I need to say that again? Right? Authentic, organic, genuine practice helps build the transfer of skills. It helps us transfer what they have been practicing in isolation into a real world context. Hope that makes sense for everybody. Okay. Remember, if you have questions, you have comments, you have concerns, drop them in the chat. I always go back and look at them. Again, share this information with other parents, other caregivers, other educators that may need this information as well. We want to make sure that you all are getting what you need so you can support them with these multisyllabic reading strategies. All right. All right. So you say, all right, well, what if we are doing this teaching and they still may be having trouble decode or they're making errors? There's always a gentle way in which to remind them to use the strategies that they have learned and move them forward in their own thinking so they can make corrections themselves. When they get stuck, do not provide the answer for them. The whole point is for them to use the strategies. If we do it for them, I used to tell other students when I taught in my class, because friends love to help friends, right? Parents want their children to do well. They want to help them. But this is what I remind students, and I'll remind adults in the lives of children. If we're always doing it for them, ultimately we're sending a message that they're not capable of doing it themselves. I don't think that's a message we want to send them, right? So you want to do a couple of things, try some strategies. I'd say start at the bottom and then build up, right? So one, you want to recheck. Let's count these syllables. How many syllables are in that word? What type of syllables do we have here? How will we divide that word out? We want to say, okay, do you see any word parts that you know, prefixes, suffixes, word roots that might give us a clue? You want to start different vowel sounds can change the word. So we're looking for vowel teams. Would that change the way in which you pronounce that word? Oh, now that word sounds more familiar. Let's read that sentence again. Does it make sense now in this sentence? It does. Great. We had to take a break. We had to use our strategies. We decoded the word, made our error correction. You might want to jot that in a journal, in a notebook, put it on a Post-it note so that they can get more practice. Put it up on a word wall. Whatever we need to do to make sure they realize, hey, I've learned this word. I need to do some more practice with that word in case I encounter it again. I am ready for it, right? So you scaffold the strategies step by step, walk them through it, and then say, does this make sense? Because remember, making meaning is the ultimate goal of reading. And sometimes it means we take a break from the reading so we can do this work, and then we go back to the reading. Because now I understand that word in context is going to make the flow of the paragraph or the text itself. I'm able to understand it and move through it. Okay. So we want to be flexible in our decoding and error correction. But what we do not want to do, parents, grandparents, caregivers, teachers, is just give them the answer. No, they've learned these strategies. We've practiced these strategies. They have to apply the strategies. That's what's going to grow their confidence and their competence. Okay. All right. So let's keep going. Let's keep going. So really and truly, what I suggest is always this 5-step routine, right? So if you notice that they are having difficulty with grade level text, an article they're reading, a teacher has said, hey, they're really struggling with these words, homework, maybe a little challenging or what have you, we want to pull out those challenging words and we want to begin to do our word attack strategies with these, right? We know that these are words that they need to know, right? But they're struggling with them. And so we want to apply these strategies to support them. So then you say, okay, let's pull apart, chunk out our prefixes and our suffixes, right? We can do this with different color highlighters, colored pencils, what have you. And you're going to start with the word parts they already know. Let's pull them away. We don't want them to be overwhelmed. They know that part, right? Then we want to underline that root word. Discuss its meaning. Look it up in a dictionary. Ask Google. I'm good at, okay, Google, what does this mean, right? We want to divide up. I didn't activate my phone. I'm sorry, you guys. I hope it doesn't make any noise. And then we want to divide it into syllables as well. Mark it up. What type of syllables, how many syllables, etc. And then we want to blend it back together. If we've taken the time to pull it apart, discuss each of the word parts, the meanings, then we build it back together, right? Blend it back together, then read it in context and confirm the meaning. Use the sentence context, right? Does the decoded word make sense in this sentence? That is that 5-step routine or strategy application that will get them from start to finish when they come across a multisyllabic word, a word that has 2 or more syllables, right? And that they are having trouble decoding it, pronouncing it, or using it in their writing. Okay. So this is the routine. Remember that you can screenshot this. You can come back and look at it as many times as you would like. It's okay. Take notes. All right. So what are some additional tools and resources to help you with this as you support your child? Make some charts. I have, you can use construction paper. You can use, legal size paper. You can use poster board from Dollar Tree, whatever it is. But you want to, put it up somewhere where they can actually refer back to it. I'm a visual learner. You might want to do it on a PowerPoint slide or something like that where they can always have access to it. Upload it to Google Docs. Oh, you need that, screenshot it, right? Whatever it is where they can just readily access it, right? You want to go syllable division rules. You want to, what do we keep together? Those vowel teams, the LE, etc. You want to go through this, create some anchor charts, right? And if you, let me see if this will work for you all. Let me see. I hope, oh, no, it didn't. I'll go back. Let me go back. I thought I was able to do that. I'm not. Okay. So in any case, then there are games. Now, anybody that has been with me for any amount of time, wordwall.net. Wordwall.net. If you have a kid that loves technology, I don't fight the battle with technology. And I wouldn't encourage any other parents. Technology is here to stay. How do we use it in the most effective way to support their learning? Right? And so if you go to wordwall.net and you put in the syllable division, syllabication, multisyllabic words, there are a ton of games that they can play at every grade level, 4th grade all the way up to 12th grade, that have been created by teachers. Some are better than others, but for the most part, very rarely do I run across any of the games on that site that aren't useful for practice, getting to mastery. So if you have a kiddo that loves that tablet, loves that phone, loves the computer, etc., don't fight the battle and say you don't need to use technology. How can we use the technology effectively to support this work, right? And then get creative. I say coloring pages. Now, people will often argue that older children, older students don't like coloring. If you have one that is very hyper, hard to focus, coloring is really, really good for their social and emotional. It helps bring them down a bit. If you have a creative that loves to explore colors, coloring pages. So this one, for example, that's here, what I would do is I would take different parts of the honeycomb. I would put in 2-syllable, 3-syllable, 4-syllable, 5-syllable words, right? And then I would have them color 2-syllable words, one color, 3-syllable words, another color, 4-syllable words, another color, so on and so forth. I can easily look at that and check and see if they are able to identify them. If you're working on how to divide certain words up, or certain word roots, or prefixes or suffixes, or whatever it may be, you can do a number of things with them, with coloring pages and things like that if you get creative. And yes, I do. I have some resources for you. I was going to say, do I have some resources today? I do. So there'll be a QR code. I also have reading passages. I have multisyllabic words by usage, like nouns, verbs, adjectives, etc., by the number of syllables that they have, the types of syllables that they are, etc. So I have like a ton of resources for this particular episode of Teaching Tuesday that you can tap into. And another part of that is AI. I use some AI tools. I found a cool AI tool to help you turn any image into a coloring page if you want to get creative for your kiddos that like to do things creatively. All right. So I just want you to know that. So these are just some additional tools and resources, right? Again, it just helps you make it fun, make it diverse in terms of the different ways in which they practice the skills. And then you can also ask your teacher if they have your child's teacher, if they have any ideas or what they're doing in the classroom to support them in their learning with that multisyllabic word reading strategies. Okay. All right. So here's some key takeaways. I've introduced like syllable division, chunking, morphology, vowel teams, 4 different strategies for decoding or reading multisyllabic words. Remember, 15 minutes to 45 minutes a day, 3 to 5 days a week, you are good. Short, consistent, intentional practice is going to yield the best results. I also wanted to point out that 80 to 90% of multisyllabic academic words, they follow certain patterns. And so the more of this work you do, your students, your children will begin to identify those patterns. They'll see it immediately, which really, really helps them and moves them along very rapidly. And then 76% of commonly occurring academic words they share morphological roots. So the most common roots are 76% of the words in our academic vocabulary, they share the same roots. So it's not like you got to teach a ton of roots. The most common, and I guarantee you they will get what they need. And remember, if you go back and look at last week's episode and scan that QR code, I've already given you the most common word roots, the prefixes, the suffixes, etc. Right? The goal is for you to know them, for you to practice them with your student. I'm telling your involvement, baby, you got them. You got them. The teachers are going to be coming to you and asking you, what are you doing differently at home? Why is it that this child is growing so rapidly in their literacy skills in a way that they hadn't been? How do I know that this is going to be true? Because every time I've tutored a student, that has happened. A teacher has asked of the parent, what are they doing? What's happening differently? This kid is growing by leaps and bounds. Yeah, we're just being intentional. We're being consistent. And we're teaching the skills that we know they need. Not hard, not rocket science. But you take a parent that may have 1, 2, 3 children versus a teacher that's teaching 20 or more. And, it just is what it is. All right. So just wanted you to know that. So this is what I not always share this, but I was like, how can I visually represent the growth that students can have? Their competence is going to skyrocket. The more we do this, that 3 to 5 days a week, 15 to 45 minutes, that competence is boom, 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 boom. And that confidence really is going to mirror that as well. It really will. And so I should have probably, this is a visual representation, not necessarily truth in this. Like you could have a student that's going to equally grow like that. In confidence and competence. But the moment that confidence starts to go up, that competence is going to take off. So I'm just trying to get you to understand that's all. It's a visual representation, not real data per se. And I'm telling you, you will see the growth. And now you will see it, and data does support it. You can have a year or more's worth of growth for your child when you're consistent. They can grow 1 or 2 years in their reading level. If you're just in a regular school year, if you're doing this work. All right. So that's what I want you to know. So I always tell you all, remind you all, you want to celebrate those small wins. They matter, right? They matter. Every decoded word builds confidence. We know that confidence leads to competence because they want to practice more, right? So you want to take notice of that. You want to praise it. I don't care how small the growth is. Oh, you learned some new prefixes? What? Like, we celebrating. You want to practice daily. Remember, consistency trumps duration. Meaning, if you don't do the 45 minutes, but you do 15 minutes a day, as long as you're doing that 3 to 5 days a week, baby, consistency, intentionality, it matters. You want to stay positive. I don't care if they're moving along like a turtle. Remember the tortoise and the hare? They still gonna finish the race. One may get there faster, but that's okay. They both are gonna get there. You stay positive. You stay consistent. You continue to celebrate those small wins, those victories, and your child will continue to grow by leaps and bounds. Remember, every child is different. They have their own strengths, their own challenges or weaknesses, right? They all move at their own pace. We just want to support them and be consistent in terms of supporting that movement. Parents, you're your first and most important teacher of your own children, right? You are their advocate. So practice these strategies, give them your support, and they will thrive. That's it. That's it, y'all. Here's the QR code, right? Scan this. You will get the parent handout, the resources for this particular episode of Teaching Tuesday. The rain has stopped. The sirens have gone away. Y'all, we safe for now, hopefully. So we have gotten through it, and we've stayed under our timeline as well. So I'm very excited about that. And you all know what I always say as we get ready to log off from Teaching Tuesday. Remember, join me every Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time in our private Facebook group, Literacy the Dreams Way, or on YouTube at Literacy's Liberation. Remember, you can screenshot, leave your comments. Most importantly, like the page, share the page, and implement the strategies that you learn. Until next time, let's get lit, y'all. Bye-bye.
Welcome in, grab a seat, let's begin. It's Teaching Tuesday.